Guys, welcome. What is good? Are you ready for us to tackle the next Ableton native synthesizer drift? We gotta do drift. Drift is so important that we cover because everybody has drift. And it's the device that's down here. If you can see that amidst my little intro monologue, vignette, colored funness that I do. We have to do drift because everybody has it. What does that mean? Well, I'm assuming that the majority of you and the majority of people who consume a lot of Ableton Live content, they have one of three versions of Ableton Live, which would be Ableton Live Suite, which is where you get all of these instruments, you get the full version, Max for Live, you get all the audio effects, and all of that good stuff. It's like the full version. Most people have it, and to be honest, you're quite limited if you don't have it. I also know there's other people who probably have the full version and they didn't even buy it, they like pirated it or whatever. I don't condone doing that, but just meaning like it's probably rare that people are watching this or watching my other videos, because for the most part, in order to really use pretty much any of Ableton's devices, outside of basically just Simpler and Drum Rack, because that's all you really had if you didn't have the full version. So I'm assuming most of you do, but I'm assuming there are people who probably don't. And it was about a year ago, I believe it was like early summer of 2023, that when they updated Ableton Live 11 for the last time, which I'm still using Ableton Live 11, they added drift, which is what's right down here. And it's a very, very interesting synthesizer, one that I love even more because I did my own little revisitations prior to wanting to come on and do this. But drift everyone has. So for the longest time in Ableton, if you had one of Ableton's, so like the full version, as I mentioned, is Ableton Live Suite. There is then the step below it, which is Ableton Live, what's it called? I don't even know. I don't even know. I think it's like Live Standard, I think it's what it's called, which, which basically means it's like, in my own estimations, it's like, it's like a standard version of Ableton Live if you just want to be able to, if you've used DAWs before, DAW, Digital Audio Workstation, if you've used a DAW before and you kind of get what it is and you've like kind of made music with it before, you realize there's like audio tracks, there's MIDI tracks, you need to sum them all together, there's like basic audio and MIDI routing capabilities. You probably know how to use an audio interface. You probably have your own plugins. You probably have your own synthesizers. You probably have your own samplers. You just would rather use Ableton. You like its session view mode, which we're on right now. And it's kind of like that, right? Whereas like if you're using Ableton Live Suite, you get all these specific Ableton synthesizers and things. Now, I don't know. I came to Ableton over 10 years ago, came into it in 2013, and I didn't know anything about DAWs. I had never used one before. I just knew that was what I was going to have to do to continue on my musical journey, which I knew would involve a DAW to properly be able to be in control of every single aspect of my desire to create music, whatever that music ended up looking like, sounding like, how it would be composed and arranged on a timeline or not. Whatever it might be. Maybe it might just be atmospheric music that puts my mind at ease. So in any event, if you don't have, and so anyways, in that period of time, I wanted to make sure I had every tool possible. I didn't want just like a DAW that would just do the basic stuff. I needed to know that like if I was going to do my research, which always do your own research, guys, always do your own research with everything. But I knew, and this was even back 11 years ago, that Ableton Live was the best DAW to get. It still is today. I don't think anyone would disagree with that. especially for more electronic music, experimental music, pushing the frontiers of technology, as it relates to modern digital music production. And so I just knew I had to get the full version. And luckily at the time I had a lot of money to be able to spend at this new hobby that could really revolutionize my life. You know, at the time I was very successful in what I did. I felt life was like drab and bland, and I started to reawaken the love of music, which I had passed on and spent little forays into, where I played guitar. I had all these like guitar pedals, amplifier. That was kind of what I did. I even did like acoustic guitar for a while. I even then was playing the bass guitar. I got into like a loop pedal. So I was like making these like loop arrangements comprised of loops with like my guitar and bass. And I realized I needed to take things to the next level because I wanted to make music that was more like ethereal, music that was more like introspective and meditative, because at the time I was really trying to, I guess, achieve what I was wanting to do through music. I was also wanting to do in myself. So this was like 2012, 2013, 2014. Wanted to sort of like show this other world. You know, I felt very like probably what a lot of people on the planet feel like right now. I was just doing it a long time ago, where I just felt disconnected, felt like I didn't fit in, felt like everyone was like asleep in this mass illusion, in this energetic matrix that made them basically just walk around like mindless zombies, just consuming. I won't get in, never questioning their reality, never being like, what? Anyways, won't get into, I don't want to go on any tangents, but like I wanted to sort of ignite this self-discovery of music within myself. And I remember I was at like Lollapalooza, I think in like 2012, and amidst some of the more normal or like more traditional rock bands, there was more electronic music that was starting to really, you know, beat the drums, so to speak. And I had never liked electronic music. Like growing up in the 90s, I remember hearing techno music, and I was just like, why would anyone, like that just, why would I want to listen to computer music? I don't like that. And like, so I had this idea that like I didn't like it. You know, I was all about in the 90s, about like, you know, like alternative music, hard rock music, you know, like Alice in Chains, Nirvana, Pearl Jam. You know, that was like my stuff back then, you know. Really liked Tool, Rage Against the Machine, Korn, you know, like I wanted this like these feelings of like isolationism, these feelings of like raw expression, like that's how I feel, you know what I mean? And I viewed like the electronic music world as like kind of weird, sometimes even kind of scary. I remember I was at another Lollapalooza. This was much, much earlier, like in 1997, and they had like the Orb and Orbital. And as I was like walking around, because I was like, you know, 10 or 11 years old, chaperoned by like my sister and her friends, and I was actually there to see Korn, but Korn, the guitarist Monkey got sick, so he couldn't perform, or Korn didn't go on, and I was so hurt. And Tool was actually there too as well. They were on before Korn was supposed to headline. And in any event, even Snoop Dogg was there. In any event, I remember hearing some of this electronic music, and it was like kind of scary to me because it was all like, and I'm doing a really bad job. It just sounds like a weird bass guitar, but it was like music that sounded like it was like from the future or from like space. And like I started getting scared because I like remembered previous lifetimes where I'm like floating around in outer space as some like insectoid being, like creating worlds and imaginations through my 8th dimensional hypercube crystals. Hey mate, special like if you remember your timelines into higher dimensions and you's only here because you was merging the celestial with the terrestrial, getting back to that place of merging, embodying your higher self is what you be knowing about that. It's coming back. The golden age is upon us, upon thee. All right, so anyways. Yeah, I never really liked this technology computer music. It just seemed too like cold and weird and too like repetitive and boom, boom, boom. You know what I mean? I'm like, it just wasn't my thing. they say you really fall in love and have affinity for like the first music you hear like growing up that you really connect with. So like people in like the 60s, you know, when they heard like Beatles and all of that music, it was like, oh my God. And then they always say nothing compares to that music. And of course the 60s and 70s were so great for music, but like, you know, for me it was the 90s. You know, like I was a little kid and my mom, she had the coolest radio station in the world in the Chicagoland area, Q101 on, you know, and so I was hearing, and my older sister as well, I was hearing Nirvana, I was hearing Pearl Jam, like that was the first music I heard, and I'm like, oh my God, this music electrifies me, you know, and so we all have that sort of a thing. So anyways, getting back to what I was saying, mate, when I was like seeing this electronic music for the first time, like, you know, that was starting to happen in like the early 2010s, I noticed that it wasn't just, you know, people up there with electronic equipment, like DJ equipment, but I saw that there were like people with guitars up there playing along to this instrumentation. I then also saw other people who their electronic music was more hip-hop, which I really did like hip-hop because I really liked the drums, but then it was like they were like sampling on top of these hard-hitting, you know, funky hip-hop drums, you know, like this, unusual samples and like textures and these beautiful sounds, and it was like, I don't know, it was just like amazing. And then I think this is important. It's like what I call a portal moment. Is at one moment I was like, would I be able to do this? Could I do this thing? Like, could I make my own, you know, hip hop instrumental music? I could have no limitations. I don't have to have access to like a recording studio. Everywhere I see, these guys have like laptops up there. You know what I mean? Like, obviously, the recording studio is now a laptop versus some sort of like, you know, analog recording studio that you have to rent time at or have like hundreds of thousands of dollars to build. It seemed pretty clear that I think they're all doing this on their computer. You know, can this work? Is the music making process getting truly decentralized, where it's in the hands of everyone? The technology is in the hands of everyone, not gatekept by, you know, like the overlords of the music industry, whatever the hell that was. So that really kind of started my journey. And wow, I've been talking for a long time now. I can't believe 15 minutes just went by. So if that was too long for any of you and you're like, well, you can always just fast forward. But I feel like this is like a podcast, and who knows, maybe soon I won't even be doing the Ableton component, or very rarely, and it will sort of be these monologues, and then I'll like hatch into more of like a serious discussion about whatever topic it is. But yeah, so we're going to get into Drift, and Drift, as I was mentioning earlier, is available to everyone, whether you have the intro or the standard version, which I mentioned, or the suite version, which has all the instruments. It's the full robust, which I'm assuming most of you have, or even the intro version. So like you might just buy like a little MIDI controller, you know, it'll come with the version of Ableton Live Intro. And when you have any version other than the full one suite, you really only have drum rack, and you have the more simple version of a sampler. You know, you have simpler. But then a year ago, they added this Drift, so it's your first synthesizer that you have. And I'm not just covering it for that reason, you know, I'm also covering it because there's a very unique quality to it. And no, it's not just this drift slider, it's this shape. And it makes incredibly unique sounds. So I'm assuming, guys, jumping in now, finally, fucking fruit fly. God damn it. I thought they just went away. I've got a clean place. That's why I keep things pretty clean. That's why I'm always like, you know, anyways. So what we're going to do here is we've got two oscillators. Now I'm going to come down and we're going to just hit one note. Okay, now I'm going to turn off oscillator 2 because it's putting a sine wave an octave lower to just give it a little bit of bass, but I want to just focus on this oscillator 1, which is the only oscillator that has this shape section, which is really what's going to make this Ableton Live Drift synthesizer stand out from just being simply a subtractive synthesizer. So we're sort of getting to, you know, with collision and tension, those are physical modeling synthesizers. They're trying to physically model the physics of some sort of like 3D real world instrument, but do it all with maths in the, you know, virtual digital realm. Whereas you've got the more traditional synthesis methods like subtractive synthesis, FM synthesis, which I'm sure you know stands for frequency modulations, and then you've got wavetable synthesis, and there's some others, but those are really like the big three, and you can employ multiple ones with, you know, in certain ones, like in wavetable, it lets you basically use everything. But we're doing drift, and to say it's just a subtractive synthesizer would really be doing it, you know, not good service. So I'm going to open up the spectrum, and you know, what's the other subtractive synthesizer in Ableton? Well, it's the one and only that has been in there forever. It's analog. So just to give a quick primer on subtractive synthesis is we're going to open up analog. And when you have these subtractive synthesizers, they were the first ever form of synthesis out there, specifically like the first form of synthesis to like ever be widely used. So it started in like the late 60s or so, used a lot in the 70s. And then we got more of like the digital synthesizers, and that's when like in the 80s FM synthesis came along that started to really become popular, and then eventually, you know, got more like wavetable synthesizers, ones that used other ones. And so in subtractive synthesis, you primarily either have a saw wave, square wave, and I'm going to just lower the octave. And then of course they'll normally give you a noise oscillator, and you also get a chance to have a sine wave. But for the most part, subtractive means you essentially shape all of your sound with a filter, and you usually use a low pass filter, and you decide what you want to cut out, and then you use an envelope to really enhance that the way that you may deem fit. So if you were to be on this sine wave, you'll get all of the harmonics, okay? And then you will subtract them away based on your needs. Same thing with the square wave. So ready? Now watch when we start filtering it out. And then that gives you your, and then you can whoop it around with an LFO and you get your nice. And then of course you've got a square wave, which is different. So sawtooth wave gives you gives you the fundamental, which is the pitch, and then it gives you every single harmonic, okay? The square wave is the same thing. You get the fundamental pitch, but then you get odd spaced harmonics. You would think, oh, there's one of our wonderful, beautiful audio dropouts. Hopefully you don't get too crazy on us here. So anyways, just want to make sure I'm still, okay, yeah, I figured, okay, got it. And so, I just like the sound of square waves better, so same thing. So and then if you wanted to make it punchy, you would go into the filter envelope, you would have to assign an envelope amount, and now you can got it. Okay, why is it saying my CPU is spiking when I'm just using analog? Is it because I'm having these issues again? Because Mercury retrograde hasn't ended yet? It will end tomorrow. Look, it's just like hanging out and saying CPU up there. What a joke. Weird. Whatever, we will trudge on. And so that's subtractive synthesis, okay? That is your subtractive synthesis. And drift is the same thing, but it does something very unique. So rather than giving us our traditional saw wave, square wave. And again, I'm going to turn this oscillator 2 off. This is how you would turn oscillator 1 off, but we wouldn't do that. I want oscillator 2 off for now. We can add it later, which is nice, especially when we find the oscillator we want. We can then double it and then do some detuning stuff, and then that will change when we use this drift parameter down here. So anyways, we have the same sort of a thing, but what you will find, so for instance, right now, look, we've got our full square wave going on. And I'm gonna just drop the octave here. Where's the octave? Right up here. Okay, got it. Now we're going to take our filter frequency and do the same thing. Got it. And we've got some other waveforms which really just look like variations of a saw. We've got our triangle wave here. Of course, we've got our sine wave. We've got like a different kind of like a square wave where it's kind of more on the down position versus the up position, but we change that with the shape, these little different ones. It's all kind of the same thing. So you might be thinking, well, you know, and this is kind of what I thought initially too. It's kind of like, so I'm actually just going to open up another MIDI track, delete this. I don't know. I'm just getting superstitious here because I don't like those dropouts. Change the color up. Okay. And so, and turn off this oscillator too. And so, where was I going? So like I was like, okay, well that's cool, whatever, like another subtractive synthesizer, whatever, but like, why do I care? You know what I mean? And then it was like, oh, it's because it's called drift, and you know these synthesizers, you know, they used, you know, these old school subtractive synthesizers in the 60s and 70s. They were all analog. You know, they were all, you know, powered with, you know, electric voltages, and they, you know, when you would run an oscillator, when you would run like the oscillator, it wasn't always, you know, perfect like it would be in this digital realm. Like it would maybe drift a little bit, you know. Also these filters, you know, these filters also had their own electric voltages, and when you would push them certain ways or turn them certain ways, you know, they were slightly not so predictable, and they would maybe color the sound. In fact, I think like one of the top you know, synthesizers at the time that people used, I can't remember which one, I think it was like a Moog, but like people were in love with this one Moog because like, I guess like one of the filters, one of like the voltage amps or whatever, like, sorry, I'm not like an engineer, but you know what I mean? If you've heard about any of this stuff, like one of the voltages that these voltage amps they use for the filter, like it would distort when it got turned a certain way, and it made it like saturate the sound in this very pleasing, beautiful way. And it was crazy because, man, I can't believe it's happening. I'm just ridiculous. I'm so glad last time we didn't really run into any of this. But in fact, I'm actually going to change a setting. Bear with me here, guys. This is all part of it, honestly. Like Ableton and like making like productions and recording yourself, whether you're recording anything, like having technical issues is like part of it. Maybe this might help. That's how it was last time. It probably doesn't. It's like you just change things that like probably don't matter because like, you know, all your software is up to date, you know, and I'm so thankful that it really didn't happen last time. But in any event, okay doke. Nope. Hello? No, I think even though it doesn't seem that way. Whatever, it doesn't bother me one bit. It'll be kind of annoying to put this together when I make the video production, because each time it skips, like my phone is recording me talking, doesn't,
and that doesn't
right on cue, that doesn't skip. But when this thing does, it stops. And so like the audio has to then be resynced with my voice. So anyways, it's funny because eventually I guess the guys at Moog realized that those filters, those voltages or whatever that they used was doing that. So they replaced it with something that wouldn't do that, and then people didn't like it, and so then they went and they reused the other components. It's really interesting. And so that drift, those slight timing between oscillators, the oscillator drift, even with the filter, you can change that with this drift parameter. But like the most significant thing is really shape. So like so look at this shape, and it's doing something with this saw wave. So listen to this saw wave, and let's see, I'm gonna turn this on here. And watch when I change this shape. Now what it's gonna do, and you can see it down here in this little oscillator, we've got our like sine wave here, this little oscillope down here. We're gonna change the shape of it. So it's almost like what we're doing is like the thing you do in pulse width modulation, so like in a pulse width modulation, it might just be helpful. So this is our square wave. So like a pulse wave, so like when it's up, that means on, and when it's down, it means off. And when it's actually, when it's up the same amount that it's down, it's symmetrical, it's a square wave. But if it's changed in any way where maybe it's more up, less down, it's like a rectangle wave, it's not like a perfect square, but you can like change that shape, and that's what's called the pulse width modulation. And you can actually do that in Ableton's analog, and you could do that on a lot of other ones, but now you can do it with all of these. So if we go into our nice, wonderful square wave, and so you can modulate that to give your sound some interest. But if we go back to our saw wave, and that's actually something I believe called like sinusoidal sine flipping or something like that. And you can actually modulate these, and you actually are able to do that in analog. You're not able to emulate that parameter. In fact, I'll actually show you. Man, this is annoying that it's just like inflamed today. This has been going on for a while, I think. I don't think this will matter, but we'll just try it anyway. Yeah, see, it's like right on cue as if to be like, no, it's not that. Jumping into analog right here. So see how we're on square wave? See how we're on square wave? See down here pulse width? So like, I'm gonna just lower the frequency so we don't get all those frequencies. And then if you come over here, we have to be on the oscillator pulse width. And you can modulate that with the LFO. Go back over to here. You have to turn the LFO on. Hear it? Sounds too intense, so just lower the amount. Wonderful. And that's crazy. I've got an idea. I'm just gonna like turn off Ableton right now. It's really weird. I was like, what if like I have to like start my vocal recording before I start? Well, see, now it's still doing that, and Ableton's not even open. Yeah, I mean, this is just batshit crazy. So here, I'm gonna actually do this. I'm going to again. Why are you going backwards like that? Has you lost your mind? Has you been going mental? All right, I don't know. Just making more work for my production later, but that's cool. Doesn't matter. Get back into the Ableton. C'est Ableton Live. The Ableton Live.
It is very good. And today we are going to be going back into the subtractive synthesis. It is very unique. It is very good, very retro. But with the drift, we get some extra good parameters. Wonderful, 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 wonderful. Maybe I will go down to the 128 samples. Maybe that will be good for me, good for us. Most likely good for me. No, 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 no. So go back to the analog. And we got the square wave. Now we had to turn the LFO on to modulate this pulse width. Now you might be saying, well, can we do that same thing with the saw wave like we were doing in drift? Well, you actually can't, but you kind of can. There's a hack. So see how pulse width is grayed out? You only do pulse width with a pulse wave, or pulse wave is also a square wave, rectangle wave. But if we go to the sub down here and we go to sync, listen, now it's that same thing. We have to record enable, of course. I'm going to knock down the octave. No, no, no. And hold on, where were we? Go back into here and watch the sync value. But we don't have a way to modulate it. Like these LFOs aren't routed there. So if you did want to do that and you were dead set on using analog, well, then you would just go into your audio effects. You would then drop in LFO and you would wait for it to load. Man, every time it does that, I have to then go in, zoom in on the way to move it. It's just so annoying. Yeah, maybe I'm supposed to be, even though it doesn't matter, it's like I'm just trying all of these things. So you could then do it to sync ratio. Lower the rate. You wouldn't want the dep all the way up because we don't want to go all the way to 100. So yeah, and so as you will see, when we go over to back to drift, and it starts us off, and I'm just going to again turn off oscillator. It starts us off with this saw wave. Let me know if this sounds familiar. Right? So again, it's allowing you to do that. You can modulate the shape. You do have to then select LFO to be able to do that. So I don't know why it has it on pressure. It's almost like it wants you to get used to its settings, but not everyone has done that enough. So that really should be LFO there. It's also really cool if you can put an envelope on there. I would suggest using envelope 2 because this envelope 1 up here is hardwired to volume. So right now, and whatever one you touch, the display will update. So if you go to 1, 2, so 2, I'll change it so you can see it updates. And then if you click in the filter frequency, you then get the filter, it then updates over there. So yeah, just thought I would mention that that's something you probably might want to know, which is weird because if you want to manipulate the frequency over here with an envelope, you might be wondering, well, where's the envelope amount for filter? For the filter, envelope. And you have to actually go and select it, which is very bizarre that wouldn't be on by default. You know what I mean? So now you could... Man, this is insane. And then you would go into here and you would play with the envelope to get what you would want.
Got it. And so what might you want to do? Well, you might want to go into here and get some LFO on this shape, right? So right now it's only giving 5% LFO. Right now this is where the rate is, so let's take a listen. And watch the oscilloscope change. See how it's going back at 0.4 hertz? Let's turn on the envelope amount because that's just, it's opening it up too much. It's like killing the ears. Got it. And so what are some interesting things you can do, you know, because there's some other sounds in here, like this guy. Now, I've noticed these other ones, they don't seem to change that much with like the shape parameter. And in fact, I'm going to actually just not have anything influence this. So it's kind of good for just like a tiny bit of modulation that you can do. And again, if you turn that rate up, you can then just slowly lower the LFO amount. Now let's change it to this square wave one. And so I was thinking, well, you know what would be interesting? Let's go over to this. I'm going to take the envelope off. I'm just going to get... Now, what if I go into this oscillator 2 right here, or excuse me, envelope 2? And what if I, instead of LFO, I go to, I select envelope 2. So that's what we got. I'm going to lower. Now, what if I route this envelope 2 to the shape? So what it will do is it up high, right? It'll start up high, kind of like here, and then slope it down. And then that gives us a really unique sound, okay? And I believe we need to start it down here. So let's start adding it and see if we get what we want. Right, and then you can like change it. Oh, I wonder what it sounds like as a triangle wave. Wonderful. And so that's really one of the most important things I can probably say. And, you know, the tough thing is, though, is, well, I think you can still see, like, you would need to have like another routing. And I'm trying to think here. Yeah, I think LFO, you have it on shape, but I'm not seeing shape. No, that is shape. So let's see if we also get some of that. Because you want to have it envelope and then also the LFO. Okay, good. All right, got it. And let's actually inactivate oscillator 2. Let's put it on the triangle wave. And let's do a little detune. So yeah, it's that shape parameter. This synthesizer is great. Yeah, man. It's really weird though, because even before I updated that software, there would be SDHOs where it would seem like this kind of stuff would act up. Never to the degree that it is now. And yeah, I have no idea. It's stupid. I don't want to talk about it anymore because we do too much. I've done too much of that. But the fact that it didn't completely shit the bed, looks like this one's going to come out. And yeah, I really like Drift, and I would implore you to use it as well, especially, you know, when you turn that shape amount, especially on like the triangle. Oh, and in fact, even when you have a sine wave there, it will give like a very interesting sine wave sound with a little bit more grit. I would say definitely go in there and try that. It's really good, really fun, and it can give very unique sounds. You definitely want to have that shape parameter be like modulated with a little bit of LFO, which, I mean, you can just drop the free running LFO in there and do that if that's like better. But then also being able to put, because when you turn that shape up all the way to the extreme, it's like extra crazy, extra bright, extra, you know, so when you can start the envelope at that extreme end and then swoop it down like that, it gives a very unique impact, a very unique attack to the sound. And it can give a very unique sound that like you just wouldn't get with like, you know, a traditional subtractive synthesizer. And so, be playing with Drift. I knew that was the one I needed to do next. I really enjoyed having, you know, playing with Collision, with Tension, because they're very unusual synths, give different sort of sounds because they're physical modeling synths, you know, trying to like replicate stringed instruments, pianos, mallet percussion, and then this Drift, very unique, and it's available to everybody, and it's a newer device, so definitely worth covering. So hope you guys are doing good. A little bit delayed, a little thrown off a little bit by these tech issues, but I think we're going to be able to salvage this one. And I think that's really about it. So I hope you're all doing well. Hope you're enjoying yourself. Hopefully you're being creative. Hopefully you're not letting the weight of the world get you down. The weight is only pushing on you to expand you, to help you break out of the mold, break out into your highest, truest expression of self, of your higher self that you are merging with, further embodying more and more as time goes on, as time eventually, as the process deepens, ceases to exist, and we are in post-time, post-mind, in the golden age, new earth, Gaia, what you know about it,
the post-Atlantean dream, the new Lemuria. We're almost there. Stick in it. About to be permanently in the age of Aquarius. In fact, Pluto is about to move into, it just moved back into Capricorn, which is where it actually began in 2008, and it's been dancing for the last year or two back and forth between Capricorn and Aquarius. And now it's moving, it actually moved into Aquarius at the beginning of this year of 2024. And on September 1st, which is like a day or two away, it's going to move back into Capricorn, the 29th last degree of Capricorn, from September to November 20th. And then it will be in Aquarius, symbolizing the age of Aquarius for the next 20 years. So like Pluto is the farthest outer planet, and it exposes all of the bullshit, all that is not for our highest truth. It transforms, it alchemizes everything on the planet that is not for humanity's highest purpose, highest calling. And it will represent its final stay in Capricorn, sort of like closing up the last bit of lessons before it moves into Aquarius. And because Pluto has a 248-year orbit, it won't be back in Capricorn for another like 230 years or so. Pluto has like a weird orbit. It's more elliptical. So like it's spent about 16 years in Capricorn. It's going to spend 20 years in Aquarius. But yeah, it has like the longest orbit, and it's been exposing all of the bullshit of Capricorn, which is like top-down centralization, power structures, think big banking, think big business, big government, all about like, a few people at the top ruling the many on the bottom, inequality in all areas, but exposing all of that, which, it's interesting that it happened in 2008, right at the great financial crisis, when like the entire financial system almost collapsed. And the only way it didn't collapse is that our central bank printed a bunch of money, essentially broke the economy. Now like it's all based on like more and more debt, more and more money printing to keep it afloat, which further debases the money supply, which is why it seems like everything is going up in price. It's because more and more money keeps getting added all the time. And that also happened during the pandemic area. Notice how I called it. Oh no, it's going to get demonetized. Oh wait, it's not monetized in the first place. In any event, guys, we're about to move. Many say that the true age of Aquarius is going to start when Pluto does its final stay in Capricorn. Again, September 2024 to November 19th. And then it will shift into Aquarius again, but this time it won't be going back into Capricorn, because it retrogrades, then moves direct. And so it's saying any last little loose ends that need tidied up, in Pluto's stay, its alchemical transformational stay in Capricorn, finishing up. So we might see more further governmental control, crackdowns, any other things as we move into the age of Aquarius. So it's like the last hurrah of that power structure, that old paradigm, as we seek to move forward into the new paradigm, the true age of Aquarius, age of enlightenment. And that's not to say that Pluto won't also be working itself through Aquarius. Aquarius rules AI technology, so anything having to do with AI technology, its abuse to control and enslave humanity, any way that it's used in that way will be brought to light. So it's being brought to light so we see it, so we can transform it, transmute it. But then Pluto also magnifies the qualities of whatever sign that it's transiting through. So Aquarius is about revelations, innovations, revolution, rebellion, also of things having to do with aviation, anything that's not for our highest good, but also amplifying the qualities. So like Aquarius is like the opposite pretty much of Capricorn, where Capricorn's all like centralization, top down. Aquarius is all about decentralization. So you might see Bitcoin truly decentralized, Networks, store of values will come more into prominence, but then you might also see, and you'll definitely see this, these digital currencies, central bank digital currencies, CBDCs being pushed, where they actually control that money and know what everyone's using it for, and that would be a centralization of that, which won't work because we're in those energies of Aquarius, Pluto working its energies there. We're going to see this shift towards a decentralization, of wealth, of currencies. So even though things will be tried, we will all see it being exposed for what it is, and what is not of the light, what is not of truth, cannot it will all be brought to the light, so we can say that and say, we're not moving in that direction, we're moving this direction. It's very power to the people oriented. It's very unpower to the people when we were in that time of Capricorn, that Pluto of Capricorn stay that started in 2008. So yes, guys, love y'all. Hope this ends up coming out, and hope you're all doing well. Take care. That's a good boy, Chunky. He's good boy, Chunky. He's good.